G'day, everybody. It's James Veigli here. Welcome to another episode of the MBA podcast, and it's episode 165. I've talked about this lots, Ash, in that I like round numbers. I have a thing, listeners, for round numbers. So I like this episode already. It's 165. And we're talking today about your ideal client. This is probably, and we've actually talked about this concept a number of times because it's so damn important. So keep your ears peeled for the next 20 minutes or so, because Ash and I are going to double down and unpack your ideal client and why you need to know about it, what it is, how to think about it, etc. But before we get into that, it's mid-December. It's starting to cook here in Australia. The year is almost at a close. Christmas is almost here. So how are you, Ash?
Got a little sweat on my brow, James, if I'm being perfectly honest. It is warm, but otherwise I'm super well. And you know what? We are heading towards one of my favourite round numbers, 168. Can anyone tell me what's so special about the number 168?
I'm intrigued. 168, 168. Oh, if it's not a cricket reference, if it's not a cricket reference, I'd be surprised, perhaps.
Maybe I'll just leave it suspended there until we get to episode 168, right? 165, nearly as good.
Good, yeah. Well, listeners, hopefully you're doing good too. Your ideal client, let's get into this straight away. So straight up, we have talked about this concept a few times. If you've been a long time listener, if this is your first episode, you just happen to have stumbled upon the key strategy, the one thing that's going to make everything in your business easier and simple, hands down. Yet, it's the one thing 99% or more of brokers don't do. And Ash, I would even go one step further. This is one thing 99.9% of brokers don't do. And it's also something that probably 90+% of brokers that have been told by us to do it still don't do it. And that's why we have to talk about it again, because it's that important. Anyway, we're going to talk about it. How would you like to do the intro on this one?
Oh, look, where to start? Look, maybe a bit of an analogy or a metaphor, like knowing is not doing, right? It's one of my favorite acronyms, KIND. Knowing is not doing. And it's a little bit like health and fitness, right? Everyone knows what to do to lose weight or to get fitter. Eat less, exercise more. So the knowledge is not the hard bit. And most mortgage brokers should know that picking a niche is a good idea and should do it. But how many actually do it? Probably the same percentage that actually eat less and exercise more. Right. So we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep pushing it. We have to keep raising it. We have to keep hopefully helping you guys understand the importance of having a niche, having a specified client. And the sooner you can do that, like, I don't know, James, maybe we could do a pop quiz of brokers that have been in the industry 12 months or less, and how many of them have already picked a niche and focused on it. I'm guessing it'll be very low, because we're just trying to get going and find any customer, and any customer that'll have us, we'll take them. That sort of mindset, and I totally understand that. But it doesn't mean you can't be working on building your business and other things within your business towards a niche. All right? There's the best time to start picking a niche was yesterday. The second best time to start picking a niche is today. Right? It's a little bit like, when's the best time to buy a house? Well, yesterday. When's the next best time? Today. So yeah, let's dive in and and keep sort of polishing up this message.
Sounds good. I think the place I'd like to start, Ash, is around, and it goes to what you're saying around that most brokers don't do this. Some probably think they do. So if you're listening to this and you think, you're right, I don't have a niche, I help everybody, I just help any client that comes in, doesn't matter what it is, first home buyer, investor, it's a refi, it's commercial, I'll just help them all. Come in, I can help everybody. Some brokers actually think they do have a niche. Oh yeah, no, I do do a lot of first home buy. I do a lot of investors. The challenge for them, if that's you listeners, is that it's only done in a half-baked by chance way. Like, it's one thing to go and recognize, you know what, I do help a lot of investors, but have you designed specifically every aspect of your business to support investors and only investors? To that, I would say, I would be very surprised if anyone listening to this could honestly, truly say that every aspect of their business is designed around a niche. There might be some, Ash, that say, yes, I do work predominantly with these sorts of people, but it's not the same thing whatsoever in terms of this topic. So we'll dive into that in a moment, but I want to touch on something first before we get into strategy, Ash, and that's why brokers who know about this still don't do it. Because not knowing it's a thing is easy, because brokers just aren't told to do this. Unfortunately, the default in the industry is, no, go help everybody, diversify, do a commercial loan, do a car loan, do a home loan, do an investment loan, do a commercial deal. Like, that's the default message, which we all know is completely wrong and a bad idea. But those that have even been through trainings and these podcasts with us, they understand and intellectualize that this is a good idea, but they still don't do it. So I want to touch on two things with you first, and that's fear and lack. Because the reason most of our listeners and a lot of brokers don't work in a niche is the fear of excluding customers, which comes from a lack mentality. And although we can intellectualize that, the difference between being a big fish in a small pond as opposed to a small fish in a big pond, people that can intellectualize that, Ash, and go, yeah, you're right. If I cut out 80% of the market, it's going to be really easy for me to carve out a bigger chunk of the 20% that I could have 100%. But still, people don't do it. I want to try and get past this in this episode, more so than unpacking how to identify your ideal client. That's the easy bit once we get over the fear and lack mentality. How do we do this?
Yeah. What do they say? The first step is admitting you've got a problem. Right?
Probably.
So I think with niching is a really interesting one for me, because I think niching is a word that still, for a lot of people, carries negativity in some ways, or maybe not even negativity, but it carries doubt, right? So the word, maybe we need to come up with another word, or maybe we just need to get over the doubt. But the bottom line is, I want all of you guys that are listening and watching this to understand, niching does, and excluding certain clients does not mean you're not being a very positive, ambitious person, right? So this is where I think this lack mindset comes from, that if I'm saying no, right, or I'm excluding certain clients or certain niches, somehow or other that's a negative about me, right? But this is what we bring to the table. So it's no wonder that we don't turn our knowledge into wisdom, right? Or we don't turn our knowledge into practical, implemented solutions, right? Because somewhere deep inside, we hold this doubt about whether niching is the right thing to do. And where does that come from? It comes from, that fear of, what am I saying about myself? That I can't help everybody. And I think there's so many reasons for that perhaps we don't need to get stuck in the weeds about it, that part of it. But I would want everybody to, right this moment now, to commit to themselves to saying, niching is a positive step. Niching is a positive step, right? Niching is for the ambitious, successful broker, right? Start repeating that as your mantra, to start to shift your mind away from this deep-seated unconscious lack that, if I niche, it means that somehow or other I'm going to miss out. Maybe it's FOMO, right? Maybe there's a fear of missing out, that if I niche, I'm going to miss out, right? But if the reality is, we know is not true, but I think that it's still a lot of doubt for a lot of people. So for all of you guys listening to this, I guess this would be one of those occasions, James, which I would say, rest your doubt upon on James and my 60 years of combined experience and thousands of years of client experience that niching is a good thing. Niching means positive, ambitious growth. It doesn't mean lack or FOMO or missing out, right? So I just want to sort of push that message out for everybody that this is not coming from a theory book. This is coming from real life, decades of seeing the results of people niching and not niching, right?
Yep.
So I think maybe that's a good stepping point to go into, you know, how to pick your ideal client, and then what the rigor and I guess harmony that brings to a business.
Yeah, exactly. Let's dive into that. And I was just thinking while you were talking, Ash, that you know, let's look at the numbers of niching. Like a real simple example. And listeners, in your mind's eye, or you know, if you've got a piece of paper, you can write this down. Have a think about it. Think about the entire market versus a niche, and let's do a fictitious example. Let's imagine the market has 1 million people in it, and you can carve out 1% of that market as customers. So 1% of 1 million people is 10,000 people, right? So you know, you do all this hard work and you're trying to be everything to everybody, first-time buyers, investors, refi, commercial. You're doing it all. You're trying to help everybody, and you know, you're doing your messaging and your branding and your marketing, and you can carve out 1% of the market and get 10,000 clients. Sounds like pretty cool, doesn't it? It's a big number. There'd be a lot of loans. On the other side, I want you to think about a niche market where we've actually excluded 90% of the market. We've honed in, we've focused the lens, and we've gotten down to just 10% of the market. There's 100,000 people in a subset of the entire marketplace. So, as a simple example, let's just imagine that out of 1 million people, there's 100,000 business owners, for example. We pick business owners, small business owners as our niche. Let's say there's 100,000 of them. And we know, Ash, how much easier it is to carve out a section of a niche because of specialties and message to market match. Let's say you can carve out just 10% of that market. Now, depending on the size and type of niche you go into, that's actually probably an underestimate of what you can carve out. Let's just say 10%. So you do your numbers, 10% of 100,000 people, it's 10,000 people. And now, the reason the maths works like this for this example, Ash, and listeners, is it's the same, right? It's still 10,000 people. There's no difference. You're gonna have 10,000 customers. You're gonna do 10,000 loans or plus. It's a great situation. But here's where this gets really cool, in that what we want to unpack now and think about is how much easier it's going to be to help 10,000 of the exact same people compared to 10,000 different people that are in different occupations, different jobs, different needs, different types of loans. So you've helped the same number of people, yet you've probably had to do 10 times the amount of work, build 10 times the team to try and work with all these different people. So I wanted to highlight that, Ash, before we get into how to do this.
Oh, I love that. Gee whiz, I hope everybody just had a bit of an aha moment with that, right? Is work out how many clients you want to help in the next 5 years. Let's just say you want to help 1,000 people, you know, do 200 loans a year for the next 5 years. Which 1,000 people would you want to help? 1,000 people from 1,000 different walks of life in 1,000 different niches that you've got to build, you know, that you've got to spread yourself far and wide, or 1,000 people, one specific niche within a niche within a niche that you can build your business around. I love that, James. It's still 1,000 people, but you've been able to focus everything on that niche, right? Rather than try and spread yourself far and wide to capture a bit of everything. Like, I really, really love that.
Yeah, well, the beauty, listeners, is you've probably done half the work, and that's probably underestimating. It's probably less. Like the amount of effort and work across your whole business, the systems, the team, the communications, how you work with the clients, how you do the research, how you do the loans, the marketing, everything. I can pretty much guarantee you would do half the amount of work for the same outcome in a niche. Now, let's talk a little bit about how to do it. Ash. We're talking about your ideal client. We've started talking niche and all of these things, and let's give our listeners something about your ideal client. So essentially what we mean is pick an ideal client. Like if you were to wave a magic wand and you had the ability to focus on one type of client to build your business and serve exclusively, who would it be? It's up to you. It's like, it's your business. You don't have to work with everybody. You can choose what section of the market or what types of clients you want to work with and don't want to work with. So this exercise is all about trying to uncover who you'd like to serve and who you want to be a champion for in the market. And then once you get clear on that, it's about understanding how you can design your customer experience and your whole business, the way it lives and breathes and talks to the market around that one person. And everything becomes simple when you do this. Not just simple, but more powerful. So, I mean, it's pretty tough, Ash, to get into the exercise here. It's something we do with our clients. Again, we have a full training on this to really unpack it. But what would probably be the most useful thing for our listeners in this space today?
Yeah, look, I reckon, and I'm just sort of harking back, you know, to my broking years and all the clients that we've worked with. And I think one of the fears that you guys are probably feeling is, oh, I've already got momentum. I already help a lot of people. I'm already carrying cost of business with staff and my own lifestyle and kids in school and mortgages. I've got all this stuff going on. And yes, I get the stuff about a niche, but I've got this fear that if I pivot and try to focus on that niche, somehow or other, I'm putting at risk all of that commitments and momentum I've got elsewhere. Right? So that is a legitimate fear, I think, that a lot of people feel and that you guys probably feel. So what I would say to that is if you're an existing broker and you've been going a little while, right, there is a way that you could, I call it, you know, like do a sandbox approach, right? So the sandbox approach, of course, James, is where you can test something inside a sandbox that it doesn't have any impact on the rest of your business, right? So you can build this structure and approach and test what you're doing in that sandbox in a way that you can make mistakes and keep working on it without affecting the rest of your business. So that's the way I like to go about addressing this opportunity, particularly with brokers who might have some momentum and already carrying business and personal expenses that generate this fear of, oh, if I stop and focus on a niche, what's going to happen? I've got these other things that I've got to stay committed to. And I get all of that, right? I really do. And I'm sure you do too, James. So the way that I would do it would be to sandbox it, you know, and this is where we help our clients, if I'm being honest, right, is to understand how to approach testing this out in a way that, not that you want to get it wrong, but you can do it in a way that doesn't mean you're stepping away from what you're already doing, holus bolus. Like there's a transition process, right, to move across, right? That's the way to go about it, to reduce that fear, reduce the risk, move forward with confidence and know that, you know, the worst case scenario here is I make some mistakes with that niche and I've got to go back and revise it and fix a few things. That's why sandboxing it is the way to go about it. Unless if you're starting out as a broker and it's fairly new, right, I would suggest that, you know, you go for a niche full blown from the start, right? It's a mindset shift, in my opinion, right? And it does take some stepping away from a little bit of industry messaging, which is, you know, accreditations, you know, help everybody, diversify, all the language that we get from within our amazing industry with all the best of intentions takes us away from niching. So that at some point later, when we start talking about niching and you've been going 4 or 5 years, it's like, why didn't someone tell me this when I started? Well, I'm telling you, if you've just started, get on board with niching, right? But if you have been going for a while, sandbox it, right? And this is where I've done this many times with our members, James, work out a way to go down this path with minimal risk and maximum upside, right? As far as picking the ideal client, well, there's many different ways to do that. Like, you know, one of our past members focused on nurses that are first home buyers. Another one focused on people aged over 50 that want to borrow in their super funds. Like, that seems obvious, but when you build everything around it, people flock to you. I mean, that other broker, nurses that are first home buyers, like, that's a niche within a niche within a niche. So the niche is the medical industry. The lower niche is nurses, and the lower niche is they haven't found a house yet. They're pre-first home buyers. All right. So he built everything around that. Well, he's now doing 20 million a month of just first home buyer nurses and probably their investment properties now.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Like, you know, not nurses, doctors, teachers, plumbers, like architects, you know, pick a profession, insert thing here, and there's thousands of them. And, you know, none of them are exclusive. So I like the fact that you brought that up, Ash, because, yeah, if you're starting as a mortgage broker today, of course, you would hopefully get the right advice and start niching from day one. But most brokers that are listening to us have probably been doing this 5 or 10 years. I think the average person in Australia, average broker, Ash, has been in industry more than 10 years, like more than half of the industry have been around at least 10 years. So the message, we know what you're thinking. Oh, but I've already got all these different types of clients. But my partners already expect me to be able to help everybody and everything. My brand reflects this. That's what I do. You can still work towards this. We're not saying to just draw a line in the sand and turn away deals. As Ash said, you're going to sandbox it, you'll test it, you're going to slowly work towards this over time. And you can be strategic. We've helped our clients do lots of different iterations, whether it's a separate brand or you move across over time. The key learning, at least for today, is that if you're starting from day one, niche, if you didn't get that message early enough and you haven't, well, there are still ways you can move towards that in your generalist business and still get massive benefits from niching. And it doesn't mean having to rebrand and tell your clients and partners, no, there's smarter ways to do this. So that's quite intricate and stuff that we would work on with our members one-on-one, but the results are pretty cool. It's, you know, it usually results in more effective marketing, stickier clients, higher conversions, higher word of mouth, more referrals, less work for the same money, because you're able to essentially cookie cutter stamp out the same types of customers and loans every day because they're all the same. Listeners, you would know this to be true. If imagine pick a client that you had yesterday, pick your very last loan that you did. Now imagine you could wave a magic wand and the next 100 people that walk through your door are that type of customer. Exactly. They do the same job. They want the same thing. How much easier do you think that's going to be to ask them the right questions and communicate with them and help them get a loan, right? It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be like a production line, a factory. And this is why it becomes infinitely easier. And we could talk for hours, Ash, about how it becomes easier to train the team up to deliver on something that's the same every single day. But again, we'll come full circle and say that after 20 minutes of talking about this, probably for the 20th time on this podcast over the last 3 years, if people are hearing this for the first time or the 10th time, we know that most will not implement this and will never see the true amazing benefits of niching. So what could we possibly say? Well, the only way to do it is to really have us, you know, almost work you through those in the coaching process. But is there anything you'd add as a final word, Ash?
Look, in my experience, with very rare exception, the ability to come up with a niche, build it out and execute it properly is very closely connected to having a strategic partner, a coaching, mentoring, strategic partner like us. And I know that's self-serving, but it's the truth. And this is many, many years of experiences. There's not many brokers who can do this from a standing start effectively with everything else that's going on. But if you get the right advice, understand the steps, have someone to keep your feet to the fire, to make sure that you stay on it, and whilst making sure everything else is still working, that's the way to do it. Right? That is the way to do it. That's the recipe, is to understand where does niching fit in with where I am and moving forward, and what are the steps to get there whilst I still maintain momentum with my existing business. So I just say, pick up the phone and speak to us, like have a chat, like, and bring forward at the front of your discussion, I want to know how to niche, right? We'll show you.
Exactly. We certainly will. Listeners, just for a bit of extra context, what we just talked about today is directly out of a resource that we have in our training resources vault. So if you want to know exactly how to do this stuff, which will help you grow your business, as Ash said, get in contact with us. We have the solutions. So, but until next week, Ash, I hope this has been a good episode for everybody. I've had fun with it. I love this topic. And yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. It'll be Christmas next week. We'll be rolling out another episode on Christmas Day. It'll be fun.
Yep, had a good one. Hope everyone enjoyed it, and I will see you next week, James.
Until then, everybody, bye for now.